I'm
Where are
trying
you?
to grow the old softy back on me face.
The softy. Where's my Gary hat?
Softy. I started just saying that without even knowing what I would, what like, or like what I was gonna, what word I was gonna put in there to describe my facial hair, and just softy is what blurted
The
out.
funny thing is that could be like a UK slang, and I would, I would believe it.
Too much energy. Beast Wars!
Man, these things look like toys.
I don't even have a mouth, Megatron. I am transformed.
Sigma balls, Gary.
Maximal! Does that mean transform?
Trying is better than nothing, much like this podcast.
Oh no! Not that! Ah!
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Too Much Energon, your favorite Transformers podcast, blah blah, where we back with blah blah blah, and we talk blah blah blah. Okay, redo. All right, three,
There's the cold open right there.
dibby dibby dabba, talking Simlish,
Uh,
Glavo Gleven,
I'm
no
blue.
Farang.
Dabba dee dabba die, dabba dee dabba die, dabba dee dabba die, dabba dee dabba die.
You know what? I don't even care. We're not going to cut any of that out. Welcome to episode 98 of Too Much Energon, everybody. The podcast, I believe, where, two guys talk about Beast Wars shit and talk shit about Beast Wars. I'm one of your hosts, NeoCal.
And I'm the man with the bullshit haircut himself, Christopher Siege.
Looking extra bullshitty today, my good sir, if I do say so myself.
Thank you. I decided to dye my hair just before recording, and not happy with the results, I gotta say. My hair is not the color I intended it to be, and it's also multicolored. It's like light, like auburn brown in some places, and like black in others. It's a
It's not gay
whole
enough,
thing.
is what you're saying. It needs to be more colorful.
It does, yes.
That,
It's not gay enough. It's not gay
that's
enough
a
for
good
my
too
taste.
much energon, not gay enough.
I want to give a special shout out to the UK listener who left a review a while ago on the UK iTunes store, saying, "I'm not familiar with the shows in question, but the podcast is funny."
Yeah, he's like, I've never watched Beast Wars, but these guys seem funny. 5 stars.
5 stars,
Like
yeah.
like
That's
one
a
out of like 5 people that have reviewed us. So thanks to thanks to that guy. Also, it's just funny. It's funny
eh,
of the idea of someone coming in at like episode 74,
yeah.
not having watched any of the stuff and being like, see what these guys are about.
Yeah. These guys are funny. I guess I'll keep listening.
I don't know what they're talking about, but yeehaw, crack open another one.
But yeehaw.
Speaking of yeehaw and speaking of yee ass haircuts, uh, Lamar from GTA 5. There we go.
I
Haven't played that game in forever.
recently I watched a little movie called Clerks 3 a couple nights ago.
That doesn't exist.
That does exist. It was released in limited. It had a very limited theatrical run, I think in September. And a couple days ago, I saw Kevin Smith tweet that it was now available on digital, and it was only $14.99 on iTunes. And I'm like, sold. Cool. I'm there for it. Big fan of. Actually, a quick side note. That's one thing that I'm really happy about with the pandemic is the pandemic has really shortened the window between when a film is released theatrically and when it hits streaming or is available to purchase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Much to the chagrin of movie theaters everywhere.
Yeah,
But
which is
but me,
somehow still open.
Yeah, and for me, the window is actually so short that most of the time now I'm like, especially because like where I'm living, it's not super convenient to get to a movie theater. Most of the
Just
time
have to
now,
walk through the wasteland for an hour and a half.
yeah, most of the time now I'm just like okay, Thor Ragnarok, or Thor Love and Thunder is out, but it's coming to Disney Plus in a month, so I have Disney Plus. I could probably wait. I don't need
One of
to.
those things too, where now more than ever, it's kind of only worth seeing something for the cinematic experience.
Hmm.
Like, what was that World War One movie? 1917.
Yeah.
Wish I had seen that in theaters. Ooh,
I I mean
hot
me
damn, that was good.
me I will go and see anything in theaters. Like I saw the movie The Peanut Butter Falcon in theaters, and that's a legitimately great
You
film.
watched Tenet like 7 times in theaters?
That movie does have spectacle though. And speaking of Clerks, I saw Clerks 2 in theaters back in 2006 because I'm a big Kevin Smith fan.
Mm-hmm,
At
mm-hmm.
least his earlier work, anyway. His more recent output has been. So Clerks
Clerks 2
3.
is a gem. So, but yes, anyways,
Clerks 2
Clerks
is a
3.
gem. That is probably the ultimate balance of his comedy, his very irreverent dialogue, and heart.
Yeah, good
Because
summary.
all of his movies previously had either one or two of those things.
Or balanced it, didn't, or struggled to balance it.
Yeah, but I think Clerks 2, like he finally nailed it with Clerks 2, and it's kind of where he peaked as a filmmaker, in my opinion. Although his film, 2011 film or 2010 film, Red State, where he tried to do a like take on like the Westboro Baptist Church type thing, that's actually a pretty good movie.
Hmm.
And I didn't see a lot of his films that he released in the 2010s, like Yoga Hosers and Tusk and things like that. And I never will, to be perfectly honest. But I did see Jay and Silent Bob Reboot that came out a few years ago, and I likened that to how I described it to a coworker of mine at the time who was a younger fellow, about 15 or so years younger than I am. I was like, your enjoyment of this film is gonna be very dependent on one very specific thing. So imagine you're sitting around drinking with your buddies, like talking about like all the good times you had like X number of years ago. Sounds like a good time, right? Now imagine you're sitting in a room and it's your dad and his buddies doing that.
The worst
So
time.
So your enjoyment of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is going to be very dependent on which side of that you're on. Because it very much is a movie about like getting the band back together and like kind of just like retreading old jokes and reminiscing about the old times. And as a longtime fan of Kevin Smith and his films, um, that's an enjoyable experience. But if you're just coming into it blind, you're going to be like, Jesus Christ. And
Okay, okay.
the
So
same is
Clerks.
true. The same is true with Clerks 3. Now, it's actually not a very good film. I'm gonna
Oh,
use some
geez.
some critical thinking skills here.
Yeah, right.
Um,
You, critical thinking.
Me, a person who knows nothing about writing, even though it's what my major was in university.
All
This
right,
is
all
in
right.
this is in reference to something that happened on Twitter recently, a conversation I just had to eject myself from because I was defending DC movies and some people felt the need to like just outright insult me for it. And I tried to remain civil, and eventually after having a very terrible mental health day, I was like I got to eject from this. I can't. I just
And then you
can't.
PM'd them pictures of your dick and while flipping them off and mate and you know, went off, did some yoga and moved on with your life.
I'd moved on with my life and then made jokes about it on a podcast. But
But
anyway,
I'm getting to feel that Clerks 3 it didn't move on with its life, huh?
no, Clerks 3 is actually, and I remember Kevin Smith talking about this on one of his like an evening with Kevin Smith QAs. He had an idea for an animated Clerks movie, which was, and he said at the time, because I've completely run out of ideas, an animated Clerks movie where Dante and Randall decide to make a movie set at the Quick Stop, which is literally just the first Clerks film.
He
And
shouldn't
so
make that because now it's getting so meta. Talk about running out of ideas. He wants to do an animated movie about Jay and Silent Bob making a movie about Clerks
Dante and
1.
Randall making a
Oh,
movie
sorry,
about
Dante and
themselves.
Randall, not Jay and Bob.
Uh, well, and indeed, he ended up using that plot line for Clerks 3. So, what Clerks 3 is about is Randall has a heart attack suddenly, because that's a thing that happened to Kevin Smith a few years ago.
Hmm.
Has a heart attack suddenly, has to be revived, and it feels like he's not really hasn't really done anything with his life, and he really likes movies, so he thinks that I can do that. So what they decide to do is make a movie about their lives essentially at the quick stop. And so like certain scenes from the first Clerks film are just like recreated, jokes are retold. It's all very rehashy. And there's some conflict between Dante and Randall because of course it's a buddy comedy and this is a
Yeah.
Clerks film. Dante and Randall like butt heads and eventually at the end they come back together. That's like buddy comedy 101 right there.
Yeah.
Um, here's the thing. There's a lot of great cameos. A lot of cameos that I didn't even expect. Like some very like just random people from the first Clerks film and even the second Clerks film just showing back up in scenes. And that's really fun. And like as a
Yeah.
as a human being, I can understand why Kevin Smith would want to do those things. Um,
As a human being, I understand.
I mean as a person, like I understand the desire to do that, to bring all to just bring all of these people from your past back just for like one last hurrah. And indeed, this
Yeah.
movie is very much like Kevin Smith in a weird way kind of making a movie about himself. It's a movie about making clerks basically.
Kevin Smith's last hurrah.
Pretty much, he's talked about making. He apparently has a sequel to Mallrats in the works, and
Oh, right, right.
after seeing this, I'm like, man, don't just don't. Mallrats is a timeless classic of the '90s, mid '90s, in my opinion. And Kevin Smith just he doesn't have the voice to tell that kind of story anymore. And Clerks 3 and Jay and Silent Bob reboot are very indicative of the fact that he doesn't have the same voice as a writer that he had 20,
Hmm.
25, 30 years ago.
Mm,
Which it's not a bad thing. It seems like he's very like happy and content with his life.
yeah.
Like he had a near death experience. It changed his perspective on life. He's very happy. He just wants to he just wants to like make
Keep
movies.
working. Yeah.
He just wants to keep working and make movies with his friends, which is what he has always said has been his goal is making movies with his friends.
Yeah.
Um, what I didn't expect though about Clerks 3 was it's extraordinarily heartfelt to the point that I actually cried quite a few times. But the reason why I cried is not because of necessarily because of the strength of the film itself. It's because I have this very baked in relationship with these characters from these movies that
Mhm.
I've been watching for the past like
I have
25 years.
allergies. I'm not a tearing up to cry video listeners.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just got some stuck in my eye here.
I just got pollen stuck in my eye. Oh. But yeah, there's a thing. You've always kind of liked like Kevin Smith movies. You've always liked Jay and Silent Bob. You've been there with them. They're older than us, but have been adjacent to us throughout our teenage and adult years. So it's kind of like all of those movies are made for people our age.
Yeah, and I've always said that I'm an elder millennial, but I've always said that like I'm kind of I've got some Gen X energy going on too, and it's because like in the 90s I
Ooh,
watched like so many like
Gen
indie
X energy.
I got like I watched like so many indie films by like Gen X filmmakers like The Crow, that's a very Gen X movie. Clerks, very Gen X movie. Um
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
and so I feel like some of those sensibilities like rubbed off like kind of imprinted onto my personality. So I'm
Yeah,
like
I think you feel a little more Gen Xy than millennial.
I think I'm kind of in the middle between like I'm like part Gen Xer, part millennial.
That's right. Gen X enough to have watched Clerks and The Crow, but millennial enough to be priced out of your own city that you're working in.
Yeah, I just read a thing recently that the average rental price in Victoria, our provincial capital and my former city of residence, and a city that I miss dearly,
Ooh,
uh, the average price for a one bedroom is now 2,000 Canadian dollars a month.
2,000 Deceptibucks.
And
Oh,
earlier this
fucking
year,
right, buddy. And yesterday in October, October 16th, it was almost 25 degrees. What's going on here?
when I finally, when like at the beginning of the year, when I was looking for a new place, the average price at the time for a one bedroom was 1,600.
Which was at the time like heinous,
Yeah,
most
and
heinous.
yeah, and in the span of like what, like 6 months, it's gone up. Like the average price has gone up $400 a month.
And
This
then
is
people are
why,
like, why aren't restaurants staffed? Ah, and it's like because people don't pay their weight like their kitchen crew $25 an hour.
yeah,
Like
I
I
that very same article I think said that the living wage in Victoria now has like skyrocket even in the past year has skyrocketed now to like $35 an hour. When I remember like 2 years ago it was like 19.
2 years ago it was like 20,
Yeah,
21 ish
I
or
think it was
something.
$19.35 was like the minimum living wage in Victoria a
Maybe
couple of years
minimum.
ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's like $35 an hour.
Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous.
This is why Galavar is living in a dumpster.
This is why Galavar's living in a dumpster. And on that note, it also because it is end times. You're a fan of knowing that it's end times.
Yeah.
You're on record saying, "Mark my words, dang it, these are the end times." Um, Yesterday was October 16th, and I don't know if it was the same where you were, but it was almost 25 fucking degrees Celsius.
I think it was about 20 here, but that's for mid-October. That's unprecedented.
Yeah, and people were like going to the beach and like walking around in shorts and tank top, and it's like, hold on a second. It's a third of the
October
way
is
through
when you
October.
should be able to see your breath.
It's weird that the leaves are all orange and brown, and there are leaves everywhere on the ground, but it feels like August.
Hmm.
Hmm. And well, you know, just like just like Cybertron, there's some the Allspark has left planet Earth. It
Yep.
happened in 2012. That's my conspiracy theory.
uh,
Gary Primal took the Allspark off of Earth in 2012.
yeah, he jumped into a stasis
He
pod
created a
and
dark
flew away
multiverse.
and was like, "Fuck all y'all," and like had like a middle finger raised as he was flying away.
And we just sat here on the surface and then we were like, yeah, I don't blame you. Take it
Yeah.
somewhere else
And on that
with
note,
more
this
potential.
on that
On that
note,
note, we are reviewing Battle for Robot Planet Empire, episode Quattro.
on episode 98 of Too Much Energon,
98. That means
we are almost
we've
close
only.
to triple digits, my friend.
That's right. Battle for Robot Planet Empire is a siege. Uh, is our great value name for War for Cybertron Kingdom.
Yeah, listeners, me and Cal have a very it's it's a recurring joke over like text message that I'm quite fond of. We have a tendency to come up with like really fake like really dumb names to describe like what we're watching.
Like dollar store,
Yeah, yeah, it's like
especially when something's bad.
dollar store like off-brand versions of things. And so what I came up with today was battle for robot planet colon empire.
Battle for Robot Planet Empire, with such characters as Justin, Primal, Gary, and Rhino,
uh
or sorry, Tiger Bot,
Hawk wife.
Vermin. Hawkwife is the best.
Cheater.
Hawkwife. Cheater, yeah, yeah, cheater. Tiger Tron. Oh, Tarantula Man.
Red
What was it?
terror.
Red Terror was.
Was pterosaur, yeah.
Yeah,
Listeners, we came up with all of these during the preamble for this episode, which you
we
can
just
listen
had to
to.
go through all of them. Yeah,
Uh,
we got great value. President's choice, if you will.
Yeah, you can listen to this preamble if you go to patreon.com/lasercomb.
That's right. And
Five,
the
five
reason
bucks a
why
month.
we're deviating so hard, we're talking about the clerks, we're talking about the robot battle for Robot Planet. Um, here on Too Much Energon, whenever there's like a fight scene,
Yep.
it does no justice to anyone for us to go, oh, and then Optimus he like slides down and he uppercuts them and like oh and it's cool because he knocks them back and then like he pulls out his like axe and then they're gonna fight and because it's like and then an action scene happens. It's great, but we're
It's
not sports commentators. Oh my God, look at that! An axe to the face. Although
no
that'd be pretty funny.
that would be pretty funny. Nor are we 12.
No, nor are we 12. I mean, I guess we could get the action. We could just smash our action figures like together, our Transformers together to recreate it, as funny as that might be. You know what? Maybe one episode we'll actually do that, the camera just on our hands, and then we'll like provide like wrestling like commentary over top of it. My God, Scorponok's got a chair. What's this descending from the rafters? It's Dinobot.
Oh, he's going for it. Gary's going for it. He's going for it. RKO from out of nowhere. Oh, what's this? Oh, holy hell! Here comes Megatron, and he's in beast mode.
Megatron
Oh, he's
would be
in the
pretty
right.
cool.
He's tearing. He's cleaning house. He's tearing them all up, and they're all running like scalded dogs.
Oh, wait a second. From
One
the
of them is a
audience,
dog.
one of them is a dog. Wait a second. That's Nightwolf or Skywolf.
Skywolf.
Skywolf. Oh fuck.
My name for Rampage in that preamble was Crab Cake.
I love that. Doesn't make any sense, but that makes it better. Crab cake. Fuck. And cake. You know how cake is like rich and filling and usually, you know, like the staple dessert that people think of as decadent.
Right.
Kind of the opposite of this episode. This is Vision Quest, which is why video listeners, I have the master of Vision Quest, Beast Machines, Optimus Primal,
Our man Gary himself.
sparking up a fucking fat ass Vision Quest, uh, Vision Quest enhancer, let's say. And I said in the preamble, and I guess I'll say it here. I'm okay with spirituality. I'm okay with there being a soul an afterlife, an allspark, a matrix of leadership, all of that stuff, as long as there's continuity and it kind of makes sense. I
Right.
mean, the whole plot is around getting the allspark back,
Yeah.
the soul of a planet. And it makes sense. All of the Cybertronians, they like get recycled in the Allspark to be born again. It's kind of this reincarnation heaven that they go to, right? And I dig that. Beast Machines touches on that a lot. This tries to be deep, but it's just dumb.
Yeah.
Like to do it justice, like let's like start here. Like to do the whole thing like justice, how does it start? Like, it, I don't even know. I don't even want to really get into too many quotes here because it's kind of like Starscream does some Starscream bullshit, Black Arachnia does some Black Arachnia bullshit, Megatron does Megatron bullshit. Dinobot's ghost shows up, or is he a ghost, or is he? And the whole like, let me in, because there's this big stadium, right? Not Madison Square Garden.
No, this is the Save on Foods arena.
Save on Foods Memorial Center. Anybody listening, that is the name of our stadium here in the capital.
In Victoria, yeah.
It's kind of,
It's a really small like hockey arena, but like anytime any like musicians of like like noteworthy bands come to Victoria, that's where they always play because it's like the biggest like venue to accommodate that kind of
I've
thing.
always hated that name. I don't know why. It's the Great Value Madison Square Garden. It's like named after a grocery store. It's just maybe it feels more embarrassing
Why
than
is
it
it called the
actually
Save
is.
on Foods Memorial Arena? What's it
Because we're
memorializing?
memorializing the death of Save on Foods. They died for our country in the Great Canadian Syrup Wars of 2000s, and dang it, we're gonna remember that.
For our American
So this one
listeners,
goes out to you, Save on Foods, buddy.
for our American listeners, and indeed our listeners elsewhere in Canada, Save on Foods is I think they're only in BC. They're a chain of grocery stores.
I think
Uh,
they're owned. What's the bigger one? Sobe, something like that.
they're not owned by Sobeys. Thrifty Foods, which is another
That's
local
it.
chain of grocery stores, is owned by Sobeys. No, Save on Foods is co-owned by Jimmy Pattison, who also co-owns Quality Foods, another like rival chain of grocery stores, which I don't really understand. This is all like real, like extremely local talk, but
Millionaires owning multiple chains of things.
but
You know who's probably made money hand over fist? That guy,
that
Jimmy.
guy, yeah.
Yeah.
But so I don't understand why the Save on Foods Memorial Arena, like what is it memorializing? Save on Foods is still around.
And that question, listeners, is kind of how we feel about this episode. Why is there a stadium? Why is it hard to get inside? Why does the Allspark fight?
Why does Justin Primal keep saying, I'm gonna try and figure out a way in here, and all he does is just stand in the same spot every time and bang on the wall?
I need to find a way in here. There has to be a trick. What are you looking for? Like a bookshelf to pull like a
There are like
you
I think three
the
bits in the
Tempest,
episode.
and you pull the Tempest, and the bookshelf rotates. Like, what are you looking for, man?
There are like three scenes in this episode, I think, where Justin Primal is like, "Oh, I need to keep them busy. I need to figure out a way to get in here," and he just keeps standing in the same spot, like banging on the wall.
Looking for a weak point. The
I guess.
Raptors, they're testing the walls for weakness. I right? And he's like, Megatron got in here, so will I. And I'm like, how did he get in there? I
He was cloaked and he snuck in when the door was
I guess you can
open.
trick the
He snuck in when the door was open when Battle David walked in.
yes, because the only way you can sense other Transformers energy signatures is visually. I the Allspark can't sense. Okay, so there's a part in this episode where the Allspark takes on multiple forms, and it has an existential crisis that what's it called? Anthropomorphizes the Allspark somewhat, but it doesn't land.
No, it doesn't. Like
Like I
it would
don't
make
feel
more.
sorry for it.
It
And
would make
the way Prime,
because
go ahead.
it's not a character. That's the thing. It's
And
like
I
it.
don't want it to be.
But this episode tries to kind of like make it a thing that has like agency and like wills and desires.
And it's sick and it doesn't know what it is. And Prime finds out that the Allspark is like traumatized and has PTSD because it spent an infinite amount of time in the dead universe witnessing the dead multiverse. Every single thing that could go bad and every reality where existence was threatened, it has like lived through.
Yeah, and heretofore, like we haven't been there. There's been no implication that the Allspark has any degree of sentience at all.
And you could say it's the collective sentience of all of the sparks of
But isn't
all
that what the
Transformers.
Matrix is? That's kind of what.
So, so Battle for Robot Planet combines the Allspark and the Matrix. Anybody listening is like, okay, you guys are just saying words now. And yes, but the Matrix is robot heaven.
Yeah,
It talks to Gary Primal when he's on his vision quests and beast machines. It's robot heaven and it deals with the souls. Come on in here with the souls and oh, except Starscream. Ugh, get the fuck out of here, and he won't take Starscream back, which actually makes a lot of sense in the canon,
yeah.
um, Transformers canon. The Allspark is just the planet's like core energy. This is the planet's soul
Yeah.
of Cybertron. It's
I guess
kind of,
you could kind of compare it to the Oracle from Beast Machines.
and that's what I was thinking. I guess the Allspark is the Oracle, but then when it shows all the souls of the Maximals and Predacons stuck on planet Energon, the Thetans of planet Energon, if you will, um, that are stuck on everyone. And indeed, Justin Primal gets some Dinobot Thetans stuck on him in a bit here. We'll talk about that in a second. And
Early in the episode, there's a scene where, and I wanted to point this out because uh, this show just keeps finding new and fun ways to make Galavar even more pathetic.
oh boy, what now?
There's a scene early in this episode where Starscream and Black Arachnia are like scheming and talking about some bullshit.
Yeah,
Black Arachnia like conjures this like gun in a web of hers and is like, "This is what you need to win," but then it doesn't come up again in the episode. Um, but while this is going on, camera kind of pans over and we see literally hiding behind a fucking tree Galavar like a fucking goon is just like hiding behind a tree like observe eavesdropping on
you
their
know,
plan.
like how Megatron from Beast Wars does. The guy twice as big as everyone else, stealthily hiding in the
Just like
bushes,
hiding
watching.
behind a tree eavesdropping. Like like he could take these two out easily on his own. That
I've made my peace with him sucking ass in the show.
like I
The
said,
most
this
pathetic
show
character in the
just
show.
just keeps finding new and interesting ways
Disappointed.
to make Beast Wars Megatron just more and more pathetic.
Um, Beast mode, Black Arachnia. Disappointing. Just a normal spider, not
Yeah,
like black and gold Black Widow,
yeah,
which is what I kind of, which is weird because her robot form is very good,
yeah,
black and
right.
gold, and then when she transforms to beast, but they were going for a slightly more realistic beasts. I've noticed in Kingdom.
Even the toys are like that too. Like they're reminiscent of their how they looked in the Beast Wars show, but the animal forms in particular, they are designed to look much more like realistic animals,
Hmm.
which I'm
Yeah,
fine with.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Tarantulas. rip in peace. Um, he's like he's a purple and green,
The
like
Transformers
tarantula,
Legacy.
right?
I actually I haven't talked about toys much on this show for quite a while now, but I picked up that Transformers Legacy
Yeah,
Tarantulas about a month or so ago. It's a really good figure, and it's very show accurate.
I was going to say that feels almost like one to one for the show.
Yeah, there's a Transformers Legacy Inferno figure that's out in the wild now too. I don't think it's been formally released, but like people who review toys on YouTube have it in hand now. So it's only a matter of time. And
Oh,
then I will have the season one cast of Beast Wars characters fully complete.
and then you can hang up your hat and retire.
From Transformers collecting? Yeah, probably. I've really been like the amount of Transformers that I buy has really tapered off in the past few
Hmm.
months.
Yeah, you rode the wave, and the waves coming to shore.
I rode
Yeehaw!
I rode the wave of Cybertron.
Um, oh, there you
I
go.
rode
The
I rode the
president,
wave of the quantum surge, and now I've been converted into a transmetal, so all is well.
unless there's transmetal
Ooh.
too. um, so what was it here? So the the episode Quattro, Battle for Robot Planet Quattro.
I like how we're having a
Uh,
hard time actually like recapping this episode. And the reason
this is
why
how Primal gets in. No, go ahead. I'll.
the reason why is because this is a spectacularly boring episode of
And probably
Transformers
one
War
of the
for
worst
Cybertron.
episodes of War for Cybertron.
I would say
You know
it
what? It is the worst episode.
well, and I
Well,
said this off air,
yeah.
but like it's not even bad per se. It's just really dull.
Here's the thing. In other episodes, we can go, aha, plot point, aha, plot point. There's technically nothing wrong with it. It's just so every okay. So at some point, everyone's like, "Where's Primal?" And he's just monkeying around, going through the trees, slamming on the wall of Save on Foods Memorial Center.
Knocking on heaven's door, if you will.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. And the way he gets
Well,
in,
and indeed, because he is greeted by the ghost of Dinobot, so he
he's
is kind of
greeted by the ghost of
knocking on
Dinobot, who
heaven's
he
door.
met in the forest, met in the forest. And he's all like, "Oh, I can't get in. If only I could just like walk in like I was a ghost." And Dinobot possesses, fuses, enters, penetrates, and fuses with Primal, and Primal's eyes just go like bright, and he goes,
And
and
he
he
suddenly
walks through.
becomes
He become
ethereal.
he becomes a ghost.
Yeah,
And here's the thing: I'm fine with spiritual things, but like there needs to be a continuity or something that makes sense.
yeah.
How does letting the ghost of another transformer enter you make you ethereal,
Make you
incorporeal,
non-corporeal,
bit non-corporeal?
like that.
Mist mode.
Like, that's not how physics works.
The, I.
And then when
So
Battle
he
Dave,
gets in, and then like the little energy, they're little wisps of smoke. The spark like flies off. I guess there's a part where like they try to assassinate. Starscream tries to assassinate Megatron, but Megatron shoots him, and that's when it's revealed that Starscream had stolen Shockwave's like
cloaking device, and then
cloaking
Megatron takes it
device.
for himself. And when Battle David finally gets inside the Save on Foods Memorial Center, Megatron just follows him in. And
Right.
then when Battle David is in the Save on Foods Memorial Center, he has yet another vision quest with Elita 1 telling because apparently Elita
Right.
1 actually has died, and this is like her spirit like reaching out to
No,
him.
it's the Allspark taking on familiar forms to him to communicate.
When he was outside, that was what was going on, but when he was inside, it seemed like he was talking to the actual Elita 1. like her spirit.
Right, it was actually talking
And it
like
had her
her.
personality, whereas when he was outside, he saw Elita 1 and he saw Ultra Magnus, but they were very much like just like the Allspark.
Only the Matrix may enter. Like it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, exactly. So I think when he was in the Save On Foods Memorial Center,
Oh, we
he
forgot how he got in. He got in by just like fighting the, the Allspark's form, and I guess the
right.
Allspark can just shoot lasers as it takes on whatever form it's taking, and it enters control, the video game control territory, and starts like
I
moving the
thought that
terrain.
too. Like with the panel, like the big like like square like pillars like coming up from the ground and stuff like that. I'm like
4D space is like moving around, except it does a worse job. It's not
I,
that interesting on the show.
I'm like, wow, they really like Control, which Control, legit one of the best games of the past decade. So I don't fault them for it.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, cool, for like 5 seconds. I'm like, oh, cool. And he's like, I don't want to fight you. And then the Allspark goes, my heavens, I have a case of me of the vapors, and passes out. And
I
then,
just yeah, I just imagine the Allspark being like, you don't want to. Well, why didn't you say so? Okay, come on in.
I,
Like,
and then keep in mind there's this huge static field that prevents communication into this crater
right.
and prevents them from flying and that kind of thing, right? Suddenly, he's able to radio the base because the writers of this episode forgot what happened last episode and the episode before. He's like, Rhinox, I need the code for you to wipe all the data of the dead universe from the Ark. And Rhinox is like, okie dokie. And then he's like, downloading now. And then just like that, he cures the Allsparks PTSD by just deleting all the memories of the dead universe. And the Allspark's like, oh, sweet. Yeah, you can go in.
Yeah, that's some that's some 11 out of 10 writing right there.
And I'm like, I, you're being spiritual, but also technological, which is fine with. Like, hey, welcome to Beast Machines,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But like, I guess, like, is that interesting? Is that cool? Is that, oh, that's just so like you're anthropomorphizing it, but then you're not. It's just a computer system to reboot. So he literally just like holds the power button for 4 seconds and loads like Windows like thumb drive like backup, and he's like, ah, now we're back in business. And they go into this grand cathedral. Everyone else is fighting and left behind, right?
Recovery.exe.
Go into System 32, delete it, and your computer runs twice as fast. There's some millennial ancient humor for you. And anyways, he deletes System 32 from the Allspark. And it's like, oh, Optimus, why didn't you say so? In you go. Everyone else is fighting, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Megatron is a bitch. Sorry, Robot. Beast Kingdom Megatron is a bitch throughout this whole episode. Ah, Black Arachnia, as loyal as always. Shut up. Go away. Why are you here? But Megatron. And he's like, get out of my way. And he's
Oh, and
snipes
him
him.
and Justin end up having like a really lame fight outside
An
before Justin.
homage to like, King
Yeah,
Kong
but he's
versus
like,
the T-Rexes.
Justin Primal, my greatest enemy. We have some
You've killed hundreds
unresolved
of
business that we need to settle. And I'm like, do you? We don't
I'm
know anything
like,
about the two
do
of
you?
you.
And he's like, you've killed hundreds of
200,
decept
the sparks of 200 Maximals.
Yeah, he's like, you've killed hundreds of, I was going to say Deceptibucks, hundreds of Predacons. And he's like, well, you've killed, that was a pretty good Justin. You've killed hundreds of Maximals. Quid pro quo. No, fuck you. No, fuck you. And,
A-
and they have a battle of
Actually,
ages.
fuck you, Megatron.
Yes, say my name. And
Yeah,
then
and
all
it's
the
a really
Autobots
lame.
and
It's a really lame fight, and I said this before, but like on the last episode, but like this show has this weird like relationship with the Beast Wars characters because it's like it's expecting us to give a shit because we're it doesn't do any of the heavy lifting to make us care because it expects us to care because we like the original Beast Wars versions of the characters. Um so but like these aren't them.
and also they're like, "Oh, you've killed hundreds of uh
He says Justin specifically
200."
says 200 Maximals.
And to which Kingdom Megatron replies, "And that's because you started this war." And it's like, "But you stole the one, you stole the golden disc and you resparked the war, but keep in mind this is secluded. Anybody that knows any knowledge of Beast Wars goes, this is all kept under wraps. This is local,
Hmm.
right? That being said, hundreds? So they're leading us to believe that there were hundreds of Predacons on the dark side, and presumably, if it's an alternate timeline, the stasis pods weren't ejected.
Yeah, yeah, and Galavar even says he's like, "We weren't even at war,"
Y-
and I'm
yeah,
like, "Well, that's
it's called
true."
Beast Wars. You you were at war, but I guess in Kingdom they're just like what, living on planet Energon for funsies?
It's what it's so ill-defined. Like
And I'm
them,
like, hundreds?
the
Hundreds.
these toys as characters are so ill-defined. Why they're there isn't really defined at all. Also, in this episode, the Maximals are there. There's this bit early on in the episode where RC is explaining like why the Allspark is so important, and the Maximals are all perplexed about this.
They're like,
I
who
swear,
cares?
I swear, in the first episode, like Justin Primal is talking about the Allspark, and
It
like
was
the
the Decepticon and the Autobots that made it go off the planet and they ruined the planet.
And I swear, in the first episode of Kingdom, Justin Primal was talking about the Allspark like being taken from Cybertron, like ruining everything, and they're the
Them
results.
having to claw through the ashes of this dead planet.
So now in this episode, like all the Maximals being like, "Huh? What's the Allspark? Why do we
That's what
care?"
I mean. Did the writers of this episode forget the last three? I, it seems
I've
like
mentioned this like every episode now I swear, but like the show doesn't pass the refrigerator test, and this episode is falling apart even more the more I
not
talk
in
about it.
of itself. In of itself, the episode's like, fine, but it doesn't. The plot holes are in that the references to the previous three episodes, which it seems to have forgotten.
Hmm.
Eh, Okay, so they're in the Citadel, right? And you have the option, there's a little ghost kid, and you have the option of red, blue, or green. But green's like, it's tricking you, right? Because like, oh, red's renegade, that's the bad option. And like, oh, well, like blue is there, and that's the second option unlocked. We've never seen green before, that must be the best. But that's a trick.
And then all the mass relays are destroyed, which kind of, in my opinion, cripples the entire franchise because it's the thing that they use to get around the galaxy. Talk about Mass Effect, people.
A- and and there's a vision quest, except it's with Alita and Prime, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why you think it's actually Alita,
I think this is
because it
actually
has the
Elita.
personality of them.
Yeah, yeah. And so
And
Elita tells
she's like,
Battle.
"Hey, you have to lose."
She gives him like some advice that is
Does it?
very like it's kind of reminiscent of like Tigatron in Beast Wars, like Tigatron's like mantra of things, way of looking at things. Like he
The
even
only
says in
way to
one episode,
stop.
uh, peace will not come until one side agrees not to fight. Now, on a very superficial level, that is true, but conflicts like this are always much more complicated than that. And if one side decides, hey, we really want peace, so we're just going to stop fighting, what's going to happen is the other side is just going to kill them all. So Elita gives Battle David here the advice that like, hey, if you want this war to end, you have to surrender. Like you have to give up. You have to lose. You're not going to
I
like it, but that's what you
thought
have to do.
you're right. I don't like it. But here's the thing.
And it's
I
stupid
wish there
advice.
was I wish there was something that told us why this was a good choice. It doesn't. I,
No.
and so Megatron, meanwhile, is like, I've seen all of this unfold. He's listening to his memoir, his audiobook in the Golden
Well,
Disc, right?
I was bitching about this last episode, like he's listening to it in real time. How he was able to get the drop on Starscream earlier
He
is
fast
because
forwarded
he
for a
fast
change.
forwarded and actually like heeded my advice apparently and decided to listen to the whole thing. Because like throughout this episode, he's like, I know exactly what's going to happen because I listened to my favorite audiobook.
By me. Yes. And he's like, you're going to put down your weapon. And so he comes out of the Vision Quest. Justin Primal is gorilla fighting. Megatron, they fight. That fight's more interesting than him and Kingdom Megatron from earlier.
Yeah.
Um,
But David is
uh,
just like, Justin, stop.
Justin, bro, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, bro. Bro, it's not worth it. He's not worth it.
And Justin's just like, okay, stops fighting.
And he's like, okay, dad. And I'm like, would Primal listen?
Not even this version of Primal. He's been so like suspicious and antagonistic toward Battle David throughout this entire show so far.
So the characters are inconsistent with themselves.
Yeah.
The only ones that aren't are Prime and Megatron, actually, right? Like they're consistent. One of them is learning to get over himself, and one of them is doubling down on his toxic behavior. One of them is like seeking like therapy, even if it's through vision quests, and the other is like, no, no, fuck you. I'm deleting all the toxic people from my Facebook.
I think the biggest problem with this show overall, and this is true of the entire War for Cybertron trilogy, but it's become even more apparent after introducing the Maximals and Predacons. The writers of this show don't know how to write ensembles.
Yeah.
Um, they like the Prime and Megatron dynamic, like that's been really good, like consistently good throughout the
Probably
entire
the
series.
best we've seen in the Transformers
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
definitely up there.
history.
Um, they don't know how to write ensembles though.
And they also don't know how to finish a chapter. What I mean
Yep.
by that is like what's the like can you end a story? There we go. I spat it out finally. Like and it doesn't need you can leave cliffhangers like Siege and Earthrise, right?
Right.
That's fine. But like I barely remember Kingdom and I barely remember Kingdom, but I don't remember being like that's satisfying. And indeed, this episode itself, what ends up happening is Megatron's right. He did see the future. He gives Optimus gives Megatron the Matrix of Leadership.
Right.
And Megatron's like, yoink! And he runs off to the Citadel, like main chamber, holds it up. He's like, this is the key, let me in. And the whole time it was like, bear the Matrix, or like, you basically, it's kind of like, be worthy of the Matrix to enter, right?
Hmm.
And Optimus and Justin are just kind of like, well, may the Allspark have mercy on his soul. And he goes in there and he has a bad trip. He sees himself as kind of like in Madison Square Garden immediately, leading all of the Decepticons, who, by the way, he killed. Who does he expect to lead at this point? Like, they're all fucking dead, right?
I love that the audience in this vision quest that he's having is uh, various models of refractor, barricade, and seekers.
Yeah, all the extras of War for Cybertron.
Yeah.
Yeah, in various shades, and then very quickly they all become like zombified.
Yeah.
versions, and he's like, what, no. And this makes sense because he lives with the guilt of having to cannibalize all of the Decepticons in order to power and create the ship, the flagship, the Nemesis, right?
It's simple. We eat the Batman.
It's simple. We eat the bat. Uh, my old mentor, Ozzy. You might even remember him. He invented
There's
a little thing called eating live bat.
there is a meme that came out shortly after the Dark Knight came was released that cracked me up, and it was a photo of a very large, very obese dude with Joker makeup, and it was captioned, "It's simple. We eat
I
the
remember
Batman."
the Batman. Uh, and
I mean,
what
I kind of feel sorry for that poor guy, but that meme was funny.
it was it was funny. And oh geez. And what happened in Cybertron line? Planet Energon, sorry. Planet no Energon? In this timeline, they don't really talk about Energon. Whatever. And sorry, Energon crystals.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Black Arachnia like collects a sample of G1 Megatron's blood.
oh, the pink, some pink stuff comes up because he was shot in the shoulder or injured at some point.
Yeah. She collects it to use
She
it.
reveals to Starscream that she's like, nobody can read, nobody that, no one without
His
OG
unique energon.
Megatron's
His unique energon
unique Energon
signature.
signature can read the golden disc, right? And she holds up that pink vial.
Yeah,
And I'm like, Energon's not their blood. It's created,
right?
their signals created from their spark. They have a unique,
Yeah, their energy signature, yeah.
it, and I get it. She's treating it like DNA. Bingo. Dino DNA.
Yes, and
But
this is
that's not what
another
they said.
and even previously in this show, like we've treated Energon as a resource that powers things.
Yes.
Even in the War for Cybertron trilogy itself, like that was a big like trying to
That's why when
gather
someone
energy.
dies, their colors and their everything fades. They
That
just kind of
that
become
was a
metal.
big plot point in War for Cybertron Siege was trying to get enough Energon to power the Ark.
And indeed, later the Nemesis,
Yeah,
the Energon comes from the sparks of Decepticons,
yeah. So
not their
now,
blood.
but now they're kind of treating it like it's DNA.
Bingo. Dino DNA. So you mix it with
I
frog DNA, and then you can clone Megatron.
All right, I'm gonna
Eh,
say it now, my dude. I think we just might actually need an entirely new refrigerator at this point.
new refrigerator. Yeah, so Primal picks up the refrigerator and he's like, "Let me in!" Tosses it at the wall.
This episode in particular is failing the refrigerator test so hard that I think we just need a new fridge at this point.
Yeah, yeah, it's the door won't open anymore. It's not even cold in there. It's warmer in the fridge than than it is outside. So
Worst
to
of all,
wrap
the
it,
light bulb is burned out.
and those things last like who even knows what those things are made of? They last like decades.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Listeners,
I
think about. Here's my shower thought of the day. You ever change a refrigerator light bulb?
I have actually. I've had
Oh,
stove light bulbs burn out too.
oh, okay.
But I have been a renter my entire life and have moved around a lot, especially when I was younger. So I who knows how long the bulbs were in the appliances by the time
Since
I
the
got to them.
70s, my dude.
Yeah, probably.
Um, yeah, it's one thing I've always noticed. My has been
This
like
light
my stone. You know the
this
stoner
light
meme of the
bulb
guy
right
at the
here,
rave?
it's stock.
Stock light bulb. Um, that you know that stoner meme from like 15 years ago of like the guy at the rave, the skinny guy who's just like staring off into nothing.
Yeah.
Supposed to be like deep. Mine is always like, well, wait a second. Think of how long light bulbs would be made if they were made out of the same light bulbs in refrigerators and stoves. So what happens is, I guess the Citadel, the Allsparks Save on Foods Memorial Center, puts Megatron in a nightmare stasis,
And then we get some like
and then
the door to the Save on Foods
pulls some
arena
control
starts doing some like control
remakes.
or like get smart type shit.
And it's just like, haha, this is the real one. And I'm like, how did so you were supposed to let the first room as a fake room? I
The call is
okay.
coming from inside the house.
The call is coming from inside the house. Mother of God. So instead of just Prime running in, J- Gar- I was gonna say Justin Gary, Primal follows him in too, and I'm
Yep.
like, but you don't have. I, okay, let's see where this goes. And they go into the hallway from the Matrix Reloaded with the key master, and it's like white, and they're like, oh cool, what's this, homie? And then everything fades and turns into lights, and it enters like 2001: A Space Odyssey stuff for some reason.
Right.
What's
And
going
then
on?
a bunch of sparks show up and like go into the Allspark, and they're like
Right, and I guess they couldn't before? So they
they're
were
like
stuck on the planet.
the
Much like Advent
sparks,
Children. Or sorry, Final Fantasy,
the spirits within.
the
Yeah.
Spirits Within. Boom, full circle. I guess that only makes sense if
If you listen to the preamble, which you can do once again at patreon.com/lasercomb. Um,
you were talking a lot about the animated.
the Final
Uh,
Fantasy film, the Spirits Within from 2001.
yeah, and so I guess all of the hundreds of dead Predacons and Maximals haven't been able to
No,
move on. I
it's not that they haven't been able to move on, because if to do that they would go to the Matrix. What they have chosen to do is like give up their energy in order
Thank
to
you.
heal the Allspark.
Right. So instead of returning to the Matrix to join everyone else, to fuse their energy and to be reborn,
Yeah,
they've given up their
their
essence.
their very existence in order to heal
Save
the
the
Allspark.
Allspark.
Yeah. It's the only thing I liked about this episode. I actually found this kind of touching.
That's touching because then it also means that the Predacons that we never met,
Yeah,
the dead Maximals and Predacons, hundreds of which I guess
yeah,
there were, um, despite the fact it's the past, despite the fact they might change the timeline and not exist, they've come together to save Cybertron,
right.
even if it means they don't get reborn.
There was a direct to DVD movie, Stargate movie, that came out in 2008 called Stargate Continuum. It deals with the character of this Goa'uld system lord, Lord Ball,
Hmm.
going back in time to the to World War II times, I think,
Right, right.
and preventing the Stargate from. It was being transported on a ship, and he sinks the ship, so the Stargate is never taken to America, and the Stargate program doesn't exist. Now, a few of our characters are in the middle of gate travel as the timeline is being changed, and so because of wormhole shenanigans, they are unaffected, so they end up just like emerging in the changed timeline from they end up emerging from the Stargate in with the timeline having been
They
changed.
made it work. Yeah, that's I can
But
suspend my disbelief enough to believe that.
yeah, and there's a cool little graphic of, like when they're going through the wormhole, like the wormhole is like changing shape and color and
Like
stuff
Sliders,
to tell you that like something's wrong, to tell the viewer that something's wrong.
like the TV show Sliders.
Um, so when they touch base with this alternate realities version of people that they know.
And it's
And
still the same time that they're in, though.
still, it's still the same year. It's just the timeline has been changed completely. There's no
Okay.
SGC. All these people, like General Landry and like Colonel O'Neill and stuff like that, they don't know who these people are. But they explain to them like what's going on, and they talk to General Landry, and they're like, "Oh, like we need to. We'll tell you where the Stargate is. Like we need to go through it and like fix the timeline." And General Landry is like, "You will do no such thing. We're gonna go collect the Stargate, and maybe down the road we'll bring you on as consultants, but you will never step through this thing." And they're like, "But we have to fix the timeline." And like, and General Landry basically says he's like the arrogance of what you're asking us to do is mind-boggling. And then one of the characters says he's like, if we had existed in this timeline, we'd want it to stay the way it is. And that's
Yeah.
something that a lot of that I had never seen like time travel or like alternate reality shows acknowledge. It's always about like fixing the wrong instead of taking into consideration that yes, there is now the timeline has been changed, but the people who live there probably don't want it to change because that's reality to them now.
Yeah. Eh, That's, huh. Yeah, that is interesting. It's never addressed or discussed.
And in this movie, Stargate Continuum, this is the only time I've ever seen that brought up, and I'm like, that's actually a really good point. And the reason why I brought that up is because you mentioned like the sparks of the Maximals and Predacons, like are restoring the Allspark, potentially at the cost of them never existing.
Right. Yeah. And then that selflessness. And that that's a good point, that coming up. But the Allspark is kind of like the essence, the spirit of Cybertron itself.
Right.
So they could get behind that. But like it said, there's plot holes because Cheetor asks earlier, he's like, "What's the Allspark anyway? Why do we even need it?" And it's like, so why would all these Maximals and Predacons, in maybe once they pass over, they see through the veil? Like, do you know what I mean? They see the truth. They
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
how futile war is. They realize they're all the same. Like they reach some sort of
They see the forest for the trees
yeah,
on
and they
planet
reach
Energon.
like inner peace, and they can uh, understand each other on some sort of like intrinsic like spiritual level, and realize that like um uh all we are is dust in the wind, dude.
Dust, wind, dude.
Dude. And that's how the Maximals got Socrates to come with them.
I think you mean Socrates.
Socrates and Frood, dude. And
I always that's like such a like subtle joke that I find so funny in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is that
that they
everyone calls
don't
him
pronounce
Socrates.
Socrates. All you've learned from this class is that Julius Caesar is a salad dressing dude. uh,
I come not to
so
bury
good.
Caesar, but to name a salad after him.
um, oh man, there's something we should get around to doing a commentary on.
Bill and Ted.
Reference it so much.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd be 100% on board with that.
Hell yeah. So what's our takeaway here? The Primal and Prime are witness to this, right?
Yep.
The Save on Foods Memorial Center disappears in kind of like a weird black nova, but it doesn't seem to harm any of the Autobots,
Right.
the Predacons or the Maximals. And then we're left with Prime. Is it Prime? Prime like floating in the air like the new Messiah with the moon behind his back.
Hmm. And that's the end of the episode, if I recall correctly.
Yes. Um, and it's like cool story, bro. Like you have 2 episodes now. You spent 2 episodes in a forest on vision quests. You have to wrap up this whole thing in 2 episodes. Methinks that methinks that thou will not beast able to do such a thing. See what I
The
did there with beast?
I'm gonna say to as a message to anyone involved in Transformers creation. First you Beast Wars, then you once and for all. Yes.
First you beast wars, then you once and for all. You pick up the script, that's all it says. The storyboard. Beast Wars, once and for all.
You're on too much energon. First we Beast Wars, and then we once and for all. Yes.
And on too much energon. When we do once and for all, uh, we rate whatever it is, whether it's comics, whether it's episodes of Beast Wars, Beast Machines, War for Cybertron, um, fan art. um, we have a 3-tier rating
Perhaps
system.
games of Monopoly.
Perhaps games of Beastopoly. Uh, perhaps some sort of battle card game. um, and yeah, we re-rate it on the Too Much Energon scale. It is a 3-tier scale, or so I am told. And it starts at not enough energon, a sufficient amount of energon, and too much energon. It's basically bad, okay, good. Siege,
Yes.
Battle for Robot Planet Empire, Chapter Quattro. What are you giving this
This is getting a
episode?
man.
I think
No,
our I
no
think we have a
energon.
sliding scale. We try not to, but when we
And
get
that
so much shit in a row, we start going, well,
I was like, oh fuck, am I gonna like no energon it again 2 episodes in a row? But no, I have to no energon for this episode. This is the most boring episode of the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy to date. And as I mentioned, the episode fell apart even more as I talked about it.
characters are teleporting around.
Uh,
Some are inside, some are outside. It's confusing.
the plot contradicts previous episodes. Like that's probably like to me that's probably the most egregious thing that this
In
episode
multiple
does.
ways.
Yeah, yeah.
For example, Shockwave is on. We didn't talk about this. Shockwave is on Cybertron,
Yeah.
and he has his cloaking device. So when did Starscream steal it?
And why hasn't he been using it until now?
So there's another one, and there's just like 4. And I don't. Usually, we can still rate something pretty high and ignore the tiny little. It's like okay, whatever. It's who cares? Or we fill in the gaps, so to speak.
The fact
Even
that
if there are no gaps, and go ahead.
the fact that characters in this episode who have discussed the Allspark before don't seem to know what it is. Like
Or
the right
why they should save it. And it's
like the
like you agreed to help the Autobots. Did you forget the Allspark? And now
this
you
is
forgot that it's on the planet?
this is astoundingly incompetent writing.
What happened? Is this the same team as like Siege? Which is very good. And Earthrise. I would even say Earthrise. It's a trip, but it's very good.
Hmm. Yeah, I think
Oh
Earthrise is
man.
probably my favorite of the trilogy.
Man, it's like dizzying. Like sighing. Like I've sighed so much about this episode, like I'm short of breath. I'm gonna mirror Siege's there, and it's no energon, but not like a hateful, like oh, just Like, why? Like,
No, this
yeah,
isn't
it's
the Death Ray episode of Beast Wars or the Vok episode. This isn't like angry no energon. This is just like Jesus Christ.
like this isn't the series would be better without it. It's just you only got 6 episodes, homies. Come on. The funny thing is, a lot of super fans of Beast Wars hate this out of principle, and we're always like, hey, hey, give it a shot. And we're not, we try to go into everything not being biased, right?
Hmm.
It not being loyal to Beast Wars is nowhere in the top of the list of things wrong with Kingdom.
Right.
So, like, when you want to like something to be contradictory. I'm gonna but no, we just end up disliking it for other reasons, and so then you end up agreeing, even if it's for
For
different reasons.
wildly different reasons.
Like the people that refuse to watch it for voice acting reasons, or refuse to watch it because it feels like it's betraying the OG Beast Wars. Maybe you saved yourself some time. Because I'm fine with the characters even being different. None of us have complained about that. But don't make Megatron leader of the Decepticons a whiny little bitch.
Yeah, because all like what it comes down to is like
Why would the people
who would
follow
follow
him?
him? Yeah, exactly. No one would follow him.
He hasn't struck me as somebody with a vision even. Have
Terrorsaur
you?
could kick this Megatron's ass,
And
even
not even
without
juiced up.
yeah, even without being like juiced up on Energon. Like just regular old Terrorsaur could kick the shit out of this guy.
If Pterosaur was here, him and Starscream would beat the shit out of the Megatrons.
Yeah.
But they were like, you know what? They'd be too powerful. We're
Yeah,
not
yeah, that's
gonna.
why
We're gonna.
that's why there's no two Terrorsaur on this show. He would just be too OP.
He'd be too OP. Like just even in his beast mode,
Just
just
hopping.
hopping around pecking it. Who challenges me? Uh, Waspinator too, man. They'd wreck. They'd clean house.
And can you imagine the Viacons on this planet? Like the Viacon generals?
Holy shit! Like yeah. They'd be like, all of y'all are bitches, and I'd be like, yeah, yeah. They kind of suck, don't they?
Uh,
Waspinator slash Thrust. The weirdest, the weirdest character arc in the entire Transformers canon is Waspinator. He led humans for a few weeks, months, years. He spent 5 million years flying
through through space, yeah.
through space. He was reincarnated as a motorcycle. Um, he went independent. He regained his memories of being a Waspinator, and then still decided to follow Space Hitler. What if,
And
why?
then after the planet was reformatted, he became an actual wasp with Thrust's head superimposed onto it.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that yeah, you blocked it out, surely.
I'm giving this episode of Kingdom Waspinator with Thrust's head out of Battle for Robot Planets. I I don't know.
So you're giving it the old no energon as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
A lackluster, but like the no energon that like War for Cybertron Kingdom is. It's like where you go to planet Energon and you're like, oh boy, I can't wait for Energon build up and to see how the Autobots deal with that.
See
Oh, we're
that
just not doing that anymore?
that would actually be an interesting plot point.
Yeah, and then guess who would have the advantage? The Beast bots,
Yeah.
the Beast formers.
It's
You can hire me.
it's rare that I think that I watch something where I'm like, wow, I could actually like I could take this story and write it better. Um,
We're not that cocky,
Not in
but I
general,
agree with you there.
but I think we like the two of us we could whip up a better like third chapter of the War for Cybertron trilogy than what was delivered.
Yes, I never went to like film school, storyboarding, and all of that, right? But along with Siege, we could storyboard 6 episodes. I can confidently say we can write a better 6 episode arc.
Hmm.
Even if just one episode is like peaceful flute music and fighting, right? Like the introduction of the characters. For example, both of us would probably agree that episode 1 would be the Autobots starting to have Energon build up and getting near stasis lock. And just as they're kind of like about to lose to, say, the Decepticons or whatever, right? Then the Beast Formers show up to fight the Decepticons. And then, as they're about to beat the Decepticons, then the Predacons show up with like Megatron as like a T Rex. And then everyone has to disperse and they transform. And then the Maximals have to literally carry the Autobots who are kind of like going into stasis lock
Yeah, they're just in
away from the battle.
stasis lock due to energon radiation, and the
And then they
Maximals
have to
like
fill
bring
them
them
in.
back to the Ark. And yeah,
And it's been established the ships, the Axelon and the Dark Side, shield you from the Energon buildup.
yes, I believe the name they gave it was the Axelon's rectifier coil,
There we go. Yeah,
which is just some techno babble.
yeah. And that's episode 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe that will. We've talked about fan fiction so much that I bet you we could fake review like a reboot of Beast Wars, like a 5 episode run of of Beast Wars or replacement for Kingdom. What would we call it? It would be Battle for Cybertron, Planet Energon.
Battle for Planet Energon Empire.
Battle for Planet Energon Empire. Battle for Planet Energon. Too much Energon.
That would be the sequel, and the 2 would be a number 2.
Number 2. Too much Energon. All right, folks.
Too fast, too Energon.
It's time for us to wrap this out. We're going batty.
All right, that
We're
was
going cuckoo for cuckoo pups.
that was episode 98 of Too Much Energon. Best way to support the show, go to patreon.com/lasercomb, LAZORCOMB. We're at the single $5 Gary tier. You get bonus preamble audio, you get commentary tracks, you get a news program, and you get the opportunity to pick a show for us to review a random episode of on our other podcast, the Lasercomb Podcast.
Yeah,
So
if you don't like Transformers and you like being random, fuck you. No.
We're going to be doing a Patreon-sponsored block of episodes in the near future here. I've already got some submissions from our patrons, and well, they're interesting. I actually,
Interesting, eh?
I'm gonna make a post on the Patreon page that for the next like round of Patreon sponsored shows. I really want people to like rake us over the coals, like give us something like
You
really
monster.
truly heinous, truly awful to review. I want to watch something. I want to watch something that I feel as passionately that I hate as passionately as I hated Mr. Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin's Night Flyers. I want something on that level of atrocious.
I brought you Night Flyers. So you Patreon subscribers, you have Night Flyers to contend with.
Yeah.
I don't know if we said this on air. No, we didn't. But I didn't give a fucking hint at
Just
all.
of how bad the show was.
how
I
bad
had
it
no
was.
idea.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, I had wanted to check that out anyway." And I was like, "Yeah." He's talking Night Flyers level of bad.
Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping we get from the patrons
That's a
soon.
tall order. That's
So go to patreon.com and pledge /lasercomb and pledge $5 to pitch us a really, really terrible show to
torture and
review.
siege at the low, low price of $5.
$5 a month. Um, Follow me on Twitter. I am at Lasercomb, or you could follow the show's account at Too Much Energon. Cal, you are at?
And I'm at NeoKal, NEO_KAL.
The countdown to episode 100 continues next week with episode 99 of Too Much Energon, where we're going to be talking about War for Cybertron. Sorry, Battle for
Robot
Planet Empire, Chapter 5. I remember this
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5 finger discount.
Chapter 5 fingy discount.
Because it's gonna steal our time away from us.
I'm sure
yeah.
it'll be great. I don't remember any of it. That's a good sign. But
It's one where the arc transforms and saves the day.
well, that was episode 6.
No, that was episode 5.
There's a whole episode past that.
The episode after that, they're back on Cybertron and like Nemesis Prime and Galvatron are there. Yeah.
Because that's needed. What?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the highest reviewed show on average that we've watched is Beast Machines. Come at me.
Probably, yeah. We didn't.
Beast Wars, probably. Hard to say. We'd have to tally the ratings.
Well, and it's also Beast Wars had more episodes than anything else that we've reviewed. It's kind of why it's the main topic of discussion of this show. But we didn't dish out no Energon for any episode of Beast Machines, so proof is right there. Anyway, yeah, folks. We'll be back next week with episode 98 of Too Much Energon. Until then, I've been one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
And I'm Battle David.
And until next week, you are Nemesis. No, actually, I'm not. I'm Optimus. Oh, why didn't you say so? Come on in.
I believe in facts and logic, not ghosts and the supernatural. Oh, holy shit, I was you for a second. I believe you. Now come, join us on the ghost of Dinobot yet to come as we venture to Save on Food's Memorial Center to destroy the mass relays.
Bye-bye.